So for the second day of your bird's eye view cityscape, we'll call it, the first step before you begin any kind of new drawing, I would take one of your erasers, and this is going to be inevitable, but sometimes when you drag your hand or you drag the ruler over the surface, it's going to bleed the line, so it'll end up smudging it. And when you do perspective, it's really important that you keep everything as clean as you can, just because with kind of some of the mental math that's involved in this, the cleaner it is visually, the easier it is for your brain to kind of understand it. So before you do anything, erase any little bit of outline smudges that you might have, and then we're going to start with framing the building tops. So we're already done with 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to frame the buildings. We'll probably do windows or a few different styles of windows after that, but we want to start with the frame. Not overly difficult. Think of it as an actual frame. So I'm going to start with one of my more rectangular or squared rooftops, and with my pencil, I'm going to put dots equidistant from the corners, one dot in all 4 corners. Then, very lightly on this with my ruler, and I want to be sure that my ruler's edge is still parallel to the rooftop line. So when I connect them, it's nice and clean all the way through, and it's fairly even. So I'll rotate, do the same thing, get the ruler parallel, and then connect, rotate, do it again, and then one last one here. Okay, once you've got it in on one, take the time, do that same thing to the rooftop on the rest of the 4 that you've got. Now that we've got the rooftops all framed, the reason I like starting with that is because of that added detail, it helps my eye to differentiate and to tell the difference between where the base or the ground level is and where the rooftop level is. So as soon as you've got all 5 of those rooftops framed, start with one building, and we're going to begin by doing just some horizontal lines for windows. So if you look at the copy of this that's on the Google Classroom, this building right here, let me see if I can hold this up a little closer. So this tall, skinny building here, this is how we're going to do our windows for the first building of all 5 of ours. On a larger scale, it looks a little more like this building here, just minus, for now, minus all of those vertical lines that are in there. So pick a building that only has one visible face. So I'm not going to do the windows to this one because there's the little added difficulty of the bend in the building. So pick one that is just perfectly straight up and down and only has one side. And from here, use your ruler, or like I said yesterday, if you don't have a ruler at home, I just took the folder that all of your supplies were in and just cut with a pair of scissors. But the edge that's the straightest, not the edge that I cut, be sure you draw a couple arrows there. So when you're using this, if you don't have a ruler, when you're using this, you want to be sure that you use the cleaner straight edge of this. I fortunately have a ruler, so I'm going to use this while I lay out my my horizontal lines. So I'm going to go with this building here. When you do your horizontal lines, really the only big thing to consider is as you get further and further from the top, so we want to start at the top, the closer we get to the bottom, the closer those window lines should begin to appear. So again, I show you this one here. The horizontal lines in there start with a little more of a spacing, then a little less, and then a little less, and less, and less, and less, all the way to the bottom. So doing it on this building here, I'm gonna set my ruler, and I wish I could give you measurements on how far you should leave or how much of a space you should leave. It's really just kind of eyeballing it. So I'm gonna leave a little bit of a gap here for this first set of windows, and I'm gonna draw these lines in lightly, then I can go back over and highlight them a little bit darker with pencil later. So there, and again, keeping that ruler's edge parallel to the roof and parallel to the ground floor. I'll slide this down a little bit, but I'm not gonna leave this much space. I'm gonna leave a little less. Nice and light, and then slide it down some more, leaving a little less space there. Nice and light, and then down again. The big thing is you want to try to keep it parallel to the previous line. So you can see my lines are getting now a little, you know what, I might have gotten those a little too close, a little too soon. Yeah, there we go, we'll go right about there. Yeah, I like that spacing just a little bit better. They were getting a little too close, a little too soon. Just like some of you high schoolers, when I see you walking in the hallways, a little too close, a little too soon. And then eventually, your lines are just gonna kind of look like they are blending together. So the closer I get to the bottom and the closer those lines become, you know, you really eventually can't see too big of a gap in between them. So it's gonna end up looking like you're just drawing right over the top of your previous pencil mark, which is fine. That helps to keep the realism in this. And I don't mean realism by, oh, these are gonna look like a photograph, they're gonna look so real, but realism as in real and keeping real with the style of One Point Perspective. So there I go. I've got the windows on just this front face on this particular building. I'm gonna do the same windows on one more, either this one or this one. I don't want to do anything for the windows to this building yet, just because this building is back behind these two. So I'm going to do the same windows here, but either to this one or to this one. And then I'm going to show you how to add some of those vertical lines to it. All right, so now we've got and we're gonna call them directionally horizontal, because if you look at the building head on, these lines are running parallel to what would be a horizontal rooftop. So we're gonna call the lines that we have, just for now, horizontal. The next step, and to finish the lines on these windows to make them look a little bit more like actual building windows or actual construction type windows, we're gonna go vertically from that vanishing point. So remember, don't erase this vanishing point. That'll be the last possible thing that we do to this whole entire image. So from this vanishing point, I'm gonna end up drawing straight lines to designated points along the rooftop. And by designated points, this is what you're gonna do. With your pencil tip, very, very lightly, you want to leave, and these you want to try to keep evenly spaced. These don't need to get closer and closer to one another. I'm going to add little dots. I'll say they're about 1/4 of an inch maybe a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch from one another, but evenly spaced all the way across. Try to keep and I know sometimes it's just luck, like I have here, that I had an even space between these 2 points, but try to keep them even all the way through. And then, with your ruler, from the point to the vanishing point, stopping at the ground level, I'm going to line my ruler up to the vanishing point. Where people will go kind of wrong and end up having a lot of unfortunate erasing to do is if you try to keep these lines parallel. So they see where this dot is, and instead of going to the vanishing point, they try to keep, because naturally windows on an actual building would be parallel to one another, but you have to remember, this is in 1-point perspective. So our perspective is skewed narrower towards the base. So don't illustrate your window lines running parallel to one another. They need to go from the point to the vanishing point. So end at the very base of the building. I'm going to finish these on here. And I know it's kind of tricky at first, especially if you've not done stuff like this before. Trust the vanishing point. Trust where that vanishing point is. Trust aiming your ruler, lining it up to that vanishing point, and know that even if it looks a little weird to your eye because it's new, it's going to be correct. You just got to be sure you use that vanishing point. So I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertical lines going from the roof down to the vanishing point. You know, you can skew them so they're a little bit closer to one another if you'd like when you do it on that second building, but either way, when you do it on the second, do it just like the first. Follow that vanishing point. Now, with our final little bit of detail on this for today, we're going to add only the vertical lines to this building. So pick your third building. Again, don't use the angular one, or if you have one back behind these two, or if it's close to looking like it's behind those two, just pick one of the ones that's got more of the open visible face to it. And again, it's the same process that you did here, minus the horizontal lines. So I'm going to run through first, put my little points all along the roof. And these I'm going to go, I think, just a little bit closer to one another. Just personal preference. You leave them as far spaced as you want. But again, use the vanishing point, line that ruler up. You're going to go rooftop down to the ground level. All right, so my spacing on there isn't necessarily perfect, but that's all right. I don't want you to spend too much time measuring things out like that. If you want to, you are more than welcome. Because remember, perspective is more of an exact science than it is a purely objective form of art. So this is all the further we're going to go for day 2 on your bird's eye view building.